This is the Voice of the Land podcast with your hosts, Kevin Arnold and Nick Paulus.
Switching from a team that is bottom part of the league, been run poorly over the last several years and got lucky to have greatest player on the planet play for them, to a team that should have been a lot better last year, seemed like they were building in the right direction, seemed like they had a direction finally, and yet every single day, there seems to be some sort of story coming out about this team. And I know there was stories about Odell Beckham and Sports Illustrated saying, "Oh, well, if he does get traded, he would love to go to the Jets, so going back to MetLife Stadium for the AFC team."
Right.
And then you also have Greg Robinson being caught with
157 pounds of weed. How much do you weigh?
I weigh 160, 165.
Okay, so he had you in the trunk of his car.
In marijuana.
Yeah, in marijuana,
And,
yes.
I mean, that's terrible. And he has not just cost himself his time here with the Browns, probably cost himself his career, his life, if he's convicted.
Charged with 20 years. The guy made $29 million in his career. He was the second pick of the draft. He made $29 million. He made $7 million last year alone. Yeah. On a prove-it deal. And he was an unrestricted free agent. He was probably going to make a $5 million sort of, a year sort of thing. And he wasted that for 157 pounds of weed, which they were calculating could be anywhere from 300,000 to about 900,000. That's what you wasted. You wasted your career, your life for that. That blows my mind. I've never seen an athlete be so stupid before and waste everything in it like that, because they wanted to save time, and I guess apparently it was the fastest way was cutting across the border. With that much weed, why would you cut across the border? There's checkpoints everywhere.
I don't know. I know nothing about that sort of world anyways,
Yeah.
So I don't know what's going through your head. But especially someone that was in a position of, not necessarily prominence, but you're in the NFL. You're being paid handsomely to be an NFL player, given a second chance after bombing out as being a second pick and being touted as that next big time.
He had a good second half of the year.
He did. He had a pretty good second half of the year. He was the reason why the Browns had a good second half of the year leading into last season.
Yes.
And why Baker looked like the quarterback he needed to, because he had an offensive line that played consistently. I don't think the offensive line was the biggest issue last year.
No, it absolutely wasn't.
There are holes.
It needs help.
It needs help, and it needs depth, but it wasn't the worst part of the team. It's just it needs to be more consistent. And when you saw that consistent play with 5 guys working as one unit, and even if someone went down with an injury during a game, you had the depth for someone to come in that understood and was able to keep that play maintain the level of play for that offensive line. When you come out of a football game, you actually don't want to be talking about the offensive line. If there's no conversation about them, they've actually done a really, really good job. If there's conversations about the offensive line after a game, probably not such a good thing. It means referees were calling their names a lot. There was a lot of yellow flags out there for holding or hands to the face from the offensive lineman, or the sack numbers were way up there, and there's just no chance. You see all those sacks where a quarterback takes a snap, takes 3 steps, and all of a sudden somebody's already in his face. He doesn't even have a chance to take that first look, even at the first wide receiver at the hot route off of the line of scrimmage. So the offensive line needs help, and now you're going to be looking for guys to step into these tackle spots on the outside to prevent, especially his blind side, Baker's blind side, coming off that left-hand side of the offensive line.
Yeah, no, I mean, there are so many different options that the Browns need to, all the holes, everything that you were just mentioning there, especially. The biggest hole, though, right now that Greg Robinson is officially out of the running for it, is, I think, offensive line. And a lot of people were talking about the Browns drafting an offensive tackle at number 10, whether it's Wirfs or Thomas or whoever it was, that might fall to them. You could all see that happening. But now that we have this analytical team here, don't you just have that gut feeling that they're going to trade down, that that's what they want to do? Because I think that what you're going to end up seeing is you're going to see at least 3 quarterbacks go in the first 9 picks.
Yeah.
And then that 4th quarterback, someone's going to, get a little jumpy, come up to the Browns and say, hey, you know what? It might be the Patriots. It might be the Patriots. Someone at like number 23 that goes, you know what? We'll trade up 13 spots. We'll give you 23. We'll give you, a 2 or something like that, and you'll be able to go from there. And the analytical move would be to take said pick, but then you're passing up on a possible franchise cornerstone left or right tackle. And that's something that you absolutely need right now. I'm terrified that that's what's going to end up happening. That analytics is going to win out, and we're not going to take the best player.
The only way for Andrew Berry to prove that he wasn't a main source of that 1-31, and you might see some movement similar to the analytics and using analytics to move around the draft, but maybe in the 2nd and 3rd round and those types of things.
I hope.
In the 1st round, if there is a guy there that you've already established as the guy you want to take and you have rated high on your board and he's available to you, you take him. That's what it is. And when we had the number 1 pick, everybody was debating whether it was Baker or Saquon Barkley. And, people thought, oh, you can get Saquon Barkley, you can get a transcendent player at number 1, and then a quarterback will fall to you at number 4. You are leaving too much to chance when you think, oh, well, this person's giving us a pretty good deal here. Let's move back, and we'll get something similar to what we could have gotten at number 10.
Right.
But now you're going deeper into your draft guides, all the information you've done. And this team's a little bit behind because you got rid of some of your scouting department. You've revamped your front office. Guys that are going to have different opinions than all this time that you waited. There was scouts going to the Senior Bowl, getting all this information. Now you're going to have some different opinions. So you have less time to go off of on that, and you're going to try to make a decision. If the guy is there at 10 and he's in the position that you touted as taking that,
deemed necessary.
We all think offensive line, free agency, trades, those types of things will have an impact on that.
Of course.
So those opinions may change, but right now we're thinking offensive line, and that's not the sexiest pick to have.
It isn't, but it's the right pick.
It's the right pick, and you need to get to a point where you're a team where you're not anticipating the day of the draft. I was asked last night on the podcast, are you excited, and what are your plans for the draft? And I said, I really don't have any.
Yeah.
Maybe the Cut and the Voice of the Land can get together and we can do something. I mentioned that
cool.
last night.
Yeah.
But it's one of these years where at this time of the year, I'm kind of like getting antsy and trying to get all the way to the draft, and it's still 2 months away. Like, oh my gosh, I can't wait for the draft. We're Brownstown. Draft is our night. That's our
Christmas. It's our Christmas.
It's our Christmas. It's our Super Bowl. Like, that's our night. The off season is ours.
Yeah.
I'm done with that time of year though.
Mm-hmm.
It's time for.
Well, we thought we were done with it last year.
We thought we were.
We didn't have a first-round draft pick because we picked up Odell, and we were like, I'm good with it. Odell for 17? Absolutely.
Yeah, and we got wrapped up into it. We both did. A lot of people did in this city, got wrapped up into the hype. Now we're in a show-me state, and I'm not anticipating this draft. So I don't care if you go offensive line in the draft because you need to become a team that supplements the talent you have on your team that has developed a successful culture out there on the field, and the coaching staff that has developed and front office that have developed a successful culture as an organization. The great teams supplement with young players that get some experience in their first year, and when you're not able to hold on to certain guys because of free agency, because of the market set for some of these guys, and they go take the money, guess what? Your young players are ready to step up in year 2 and year 3 to take those spots, and you don't drop off that much. Or maybe you have a slight drop-off year, then the next year you're right back to 3-4 years of competing for Super Bowls or even at least division titles.
Right.
That is the culture that we are trying to get to and what should be here in a football town in Cleveland. So I'm not anticipating the draft. I don't know if you are.
Yeah.
But I don't care if it's offensive line. If the guy's there, take him. Don't trade down, and Andrew Berry can prove that he wasn't that 1-31 guy by just doing what everybody expects he's going to do and trade back.
I'm looking forward to the draft for the sense that, it is Combine Week. Combine Week is coming up. It's this coming up week. I love Combine Week. I hate the fact that, my provider no longer carries the NFL Network, and it kills me.
Yeah.
which is awful. But yeah, I'm going to keep up with it, as much as possible.
Yeah.
But I don't need a sexy pick.
No.
I don't need a sexy pick. We have the sexy positions are all
Yes.
filled up for us. We are all sexed up.
Just put them in a
we
position
got
to
this
succeed.
going on right now. We got Baker. We have the running backs. We have the cornerbacks.
Mhm.
We have the wide receivers. Obviously, you want to fill in depth and go from there. Cool, whatever. I hear that. But the positions that we need are these offensive tackles. We need the tackles filled, and if you're not going to pick it up in free agency, which getting a right tackle in free agency or a left tackle especially, but I mean it costs you a ton of money, and we got about $63 million to play with right now, which is all fine and good, but I want to find someone that is going to be here for the long haul. And if you're telling me that I can get Wirfs or Thomas or one of these offensive tackles that will turn into something that we have as a cornerstone, like a Joe Thomas. I'm not saying you got to be Joe Thomas,
Right.
but if you can be 75% of Joe Thomas, that's a Pro Bowl every once in a while, and it's like a Joel Bitonio. Like if you can be a Joel Bitonio as an offensive, tackle,
right,
just move that over. I would take that every day of the week, because what was the key success for us whenever we went 7-8-1? The last 8 games of that year previously. Baker didn't get sacked. Baker didn't get touched. He got sacked, I believe it was like 6 times over the last 8 games, and he was only touched like 10 times over that time frame. That's what you need, and that's exactly what I'm hoping the Browns are going to look at. But once again, this analytical take of mine is that my deepest fear is that we will have those offensive tackles on the board because 3 quarterbacks, and this is supposed to be like a historically great wide receiver draft. A couple of those guys go ahead of us, and then all of the tackles are there, and we go, you know what? We're going to outsmart ourselves again, and we'll trade down to 18, and within 10 to 18, all of those guys are taken, and then we're sitting there just diddling around thinking, oh well, I guess we'll take a tackle in the 3rd round. Like that's not what I need.
Or they'll take a 3rd round rated tackle and take him in the 1st round and like surprise everybody and like just overthink
That is
things.
Textbook Cleveland.
Yes,
textbook Cleveland.
Thinking
right there.
You're smarter than everybody else, but at the same time, as you just said, outsmarting yourself instead of just doing what is there. That is why, and I'm hoping what Andrew Berry said is right. We're in a show me state with this team. He said that yes, they're going to use analytics to fuel information. They're going to fuel decisions with the analytics, but they're still going to be a scouting driven team, a football operational type team with analytics just pushing the narrative a little bit more like it has in all sports. It is a part of sports. Let's not deny it. Analytics is a part of it.
Oh, of course.
It can't be the main part in football. We've seen that before. So hopefully he's right and the scouting takes over and is the final decision when it comes time for number 10. I got to admit, I got to do a little more digging on some of these guys. I could barely come up with a name last night when I was being interviewed.
I was going to say the combine is the exact time that you're just pay attention this week. You'll be fine.
Well, hopefully the gym's got NFL Network on. Bring the headphones, plug into the
Good
treadmill,
call.
and
good call.
Because I'm working all day long when they got the stuff going on. Then they have the review from about like 8 to 11 on NFL Network. So maybe if
they always do a recap. And
if the gym's got it on, then I can kind of get the short little recap.
I just miss Good Morning Football. I love Good Morning Football.
Yeah,
one of my favorite shows.
Great show. Kay Adams, Nate Burleson,
Kyle Brandt, Peter Schrager.
Yeah, those guys.
Fantastic.
They do a phenomenal
out.
job. Hey, shout out from the VTF to Good Morning Football. Speaking of football, just real quickly before we transition to baseball, your thoughts on the proposed new CBA the NFL voted on? The players are pushing their vote back to Tuesday. 17-game season, possible 7th team in the playoffs. Your
helps
reaction
out Cleveland.
But
Definitely
you
helps
don't
out Cleveland.
want it to, right?
What? I don't care. At this point in time, just make the playoffs. If you make the playoffs at 9-8, which is what it would end up being, I don't care. That's a winning season. B, you're in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I'm going to take that no matter what. I just want to be in the playoffs. It gives us another opportunity to get there. Gives another opportunity to everybody, obviously.
Yeah.
That 17th game I'm okay with. Depends on what the players want to accept and what they're willing to take.
And I don't think they're going to.
They might not. I mean,
they're going to look at it as, are we really being compensated enough to add one more game, to add one more regular season game where we're putting our
If the split is
bodies on the
52
line?
to 48, which is what the proposed split would be, you're looking at probably another close to $1 billion just adding that extra week, for revenue for all the players. J.J. Watt came out and said, it's a hard no for him. He's one player. He's made $100 million in his career. How about the third string cornerback, for the Detroit Lions that doesn't make anywhere near as much as that? Someone came out and said it, and I wish I could remember who said it, but these guys, a lot of the NFL, like 92% of the NFL, aren't millionaires. Like they make hundreds of thousands of dollars. Right. They make six figures, but they're not hundreds of millions.
We won't see, but
stuff. Yeah. Hopefully we see it
down the line.
But a lot of these players don't see that sort of money that J.J. Watt makes. So there's a lot of people out there that are saying adding the benefits, adding the cut down on the marijuana usage. A lot of that the players really want or need, and that's something that might sway the lines and go from there. Apparently, the NFL they want that 17th game. They want that 7th playoff spot, which I kind of like the 7th playoff spot because it puts such a hard value on being number one in your conference. Because if you think about
it, you're the only team that gets a bye.
You're the only team that gets the bye at that point, and everyone would be striving to get there. So at week 17 or 18 of the regular season, you don't see as many people sitting their players. You want that to happen.
Yeah, competition all the way throughout. I just think that
plus it'd give us an extra week for fantasy.
Yeah, it does.
There
I mean, just the money and the intrigue in football just extends out more. The 7th team in the playoffs, I get the 17th game, but the 7th team in the playoffs, I know a lot of Browns fans like that because, like you just said, it gives us more of a chance to get in the playoffs and we can end our streak of not being in. Guess what? We have to be a team. We have to be a team that is striving to be division winners now, not just trying to get in the playoffs. That was a few years ago.
Sure.
If this was a few years ago, I'd be okay with it because we were so down in the dumps, so far back, that if you could develop into even just a mediocre team, an average team in the NFL, you would have more of a chance to make the playoffs. Great. You can end the streak. You can get your players some playoff experience. Maybe get beat up in that game. Maybe that helps build your culture. Now, with the way that this team is set up in the skill positions like we just mentioned, and even across the board, do you really want to see just 9-8 teams, or maybe 8-9 teams, 7 and whatever it would be?
I'm
7
a 6-10 Browns fan.
I understand.
I want in. I want in. No
want
matter
in,
what.
but I want in.
I want in.
Do you understand the difference between I just want in versus I want in?
10-7 to 8-9. Okay, there's a 2-game difference right there. Okay. Either way, if you're in, you're in.
Give me 11-6, 12-5. That type of team. But that's what you have to strive for. Trust me, I understand where you're coming from. This isn't like a heated debate like we got into last week. Trust me, that's not what this is. I would love to be, if we get in. I'm not going to be like, oh my gosh, well we only just snuck into the playoffs. I'm not going to poo-poo it like that or push it down like that. It's just
I'll take a backdoor sneak in.
Right. I'm just at the point where I want to be into the original structure of the 6, but also in even the 3rd or 4th spot because you won the division. You maybe not just you're still developing into trying to become one of the top 2 teams in the FC. That's where this team needs to strive to get to. It just seems like there's just something every single week with Cleveland sports or some sort of tie-in to Cleveland sports. I don't know if you saw my tweet. I kind of talked about it being almost like a soap opera coming to your daytime television. Check your local listings, those types of things. There's different, those back and forth type thing. It just, every time I go on break at work and I go on Twitter, or I'm just kind of looking through my Apple Watch goes off and it's Bleacher Report. Well, such and such player was caught with this much marijuana this week. According to Sports Illustrated, Odell Beckham wants to be traded to New York. Baker Mayfield is now being alleged to have this person in his life for doing this wrong.
What did we say last week? There's always something going on with this Browns team.
There's always something going on. It's just you'd rather see it, instead of being off-season drama, be on field, on court, on surface success.